Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe, Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe, Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe, Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radhe, Radha Damodar Radha Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Radha Gopinath Jaya Panchatattva 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 Jaya Panchatattva 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 Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, today we will be doing the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, arguably one of the sweetest chapters. Hare Krishna, Shashi Mataji and Anuradha Mataji. Arguably one of the sweetest chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, entitled Devotional Service. And before we get started, we'll just start with the invocation. Take the blessings of the devotees before we start. Namo Vishnu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. So, in chapter 11, we focused on the universal form of the Lord, the very fearful, the very extraordinary aspect. But Arjuna became very fearful and he became very scared when he saw it. And so, after focusing on that universal form, finally Lord showed his original two-armed form as Lord Krishna. I'll just move a little bit. And so, after seeing that form, Arjuna became satisfied. He came back to his senses. He became pleased again. And so this chapter is now going to start off setting off from that terrible, scary form of the universal form to devotional service, emphasizing and clarifying the doubts about devotional service and the various processes. And it will, Hare Krishna, Shri Mataji, it will indicate which process will help, which process won't, which is more practical, which is more applicable, etc., etc. And so now we're in the middle 6 chapters. This is the end of the next 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters of the Gita. First, we started off in chapter 6. We concluded Yogi Namapi Sarvesham Madgate Nandara Atmana Shaddavan Bhajate Yomam Same Yukta Tamomata. That yogi, among all yogis, the one who's engaged in that transcendental devotion is most intimately united with me in yoga. And then so from that point onwards, we've gone through the knowledge of the absolute, attaining the supreme, the most confidential knowledge, the opulences of the absolute, the universal form, and now we're here with devotional service. Because every chapter, if you look in, it will talk about 7th is part and parcel, the living entity. 8th chapter is about the time of death. And the 9th chapter is about what is the most confidential aspect. The 10th chapter is about the opulence, and the 11th is that form of all the opulences, the universal form. But it always comes to a conclusion, whether that be the 8th chapter, the 7th chapter, the 9th chapter, the 11th chapter. It always comes back to devotional service, whether that be mat kar mat krin mat paramo or man mana bhava mat bhakta. And so because this is like the middle section, that most confidential hidden section of the Gita, this will now be described in this chapter here. And so it starts off with a question from Arjun. As Arjun, one of the things we know is that the quality of a good student is that they will always ask questions whenever they have doubts, and the quality of a good teacher is that they encourage these types of questions. And so Arjun always, Lord Krishna always encourages these questions whenever they are asked, because they allow us to develop our knowledge and understanding. So Arjun says at the first verse, Arjuna vacha evam satata yukta ye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittama. Arjun inquired, which is considered to be more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? So this is a very similar question to the one we have seen earlier, posed in the 3rd and 5th chapter in those self-karma yoga sections. Is it work or renunciation? But this one's a little bit more developed than that. Is it work in devotional service to the personal form of the Lord, you yourself as Lord Krishna? Or is it work, renouncing work and meditating on the impersonal form? These two contradictions, these two aspects, they seem to be slightly contradictory in their approaches. So which one is better? Which one should I choose? Because now Arjun has seen, he's heard about the impersonal, he's seen the personal, he's seen the universal form. And so he's now wondering, which is easier, which is higher, which is more perfectly situated. And so at the end of the 11th chapter, of course, when Arjun became terrified, he became fearful. It was only after seeing the form of Lord with the 2 arms as Lord Krishna that he finally came back to his senses. He saw that Soumya Vapu, that beautiful form, the sweet form of the Lord. And so this question is now arisen in his mind, because he is attached to that form of the Lord, his personal form. And so he's thinking, your devotional service or meditating on the impersonal Brahman, the impersonal aspect of the Lord, the impersonal feature. And so then the Lord answers. Sorry, I normally would say what this verse is of. Verses 1 to 7 is about the process of devotional service. So the Lord answers now. He says, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha, Maya Vesha Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. So immediately answers, saying those who are devoted to the personal form of the Lord, while they're engaged in the worshipping, so that's whether that be chanting, the hearing, buying the foodstuffs even while going outside to get prasadam, that is also devotion. Those people who always think of the Lord whenever they do these, Lord as Lord Krishna, while ever they carry out these activities, they're considered to be the most perfect. And so immediately he says, straight away, off the bat, it's devotional service. But he clarifies now in the 2nd verse that Yetvaksharamanir-desham avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastam machalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hiderata. So the 2nd verse he's clearly stated, yes, devotional service. But then he goes on to say in the 3rd and 4th verse, but those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, unconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So they do achieve the Lord. They have, in terms of they will achieve the Brahman state, the impersonal level they will get to. Whereas the other devotees, those who get to the personal level, go beyond that and reach to the Lord himself in his spiritual sky in the transcendental abode of Goloka Vrindavan. And so it's these 2 processes are there. There's 2 types of transcendentalists, the personalist and the impersonalist. And sometimes the impersonalists think that Lord he can't have a form because that would restrict him. that would mean that he won't be able to, he's confined. And the inconceivable cannot be confined by anything. Well, that's not actually true, because the Lord's form is not like our form. His form is also unlimited. And so, by nature, his form is able to be inconceivable as well. And so a form does not restrict him because he's the supreme. And so those who worship the impersonal, they also, at last, it's described, at last, they will achieve the Brahman understanding. They will understand that impersonal aspect, and they will come to it. But the summary, really, of this entire process is then given in the 5th verse, very, very important verse. Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta higatir dukkam dehavad biravapyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So yes, both these processes lead to that destination. But the impersonal is far more difficult. There's so many more of what's described as. It's very troublesome. Advancement is very troublesome. Kleshaha, trouble. So there's a lot of troubles on that path when one has to worship the avyakta, the unmanifested form. And the reasons being that, yes, it's possible. Why is it difficult? Because it's very difficult to form that loving bond between when, for example, when there is that personal feature of the Lord, then one recognizes the Lord, they recognize themselves, and they can recognize that loving relation in between. So that for love to exist, there needs to be the subject, the object, and a reciprocal relationship. The reciprocation should be there as well. And so when there is a idea of there is no subject or object, then there can't be any reciprocation either in that impersonal aspect. And so it becomes very difficult, firstly, to even attach oneself in terms of loving that feature of the Lord. Another reason is, well, the unmanifest, because it's unmanifest, it's also impossible for us to have any sort of conceptual level of understanding of it. We cannot connect to it at all. There is no means of connection, because to conceive which is unmanifested is impossible. Whereas we can conceive, although the Lord is inconceivable, we can conceive him slightly to an extent. But it's impossible for that impersonal aspect, and that makes it very difficult as well. And the other one is that inactivity. Some of you may remember from the earlier lectures on the karma topics of chapters 1 to 6, that the process of inactivity is very, very difficult. That we can't simply give up the work that we are doing. We cannot simply, restrict our senses from acting. We can't simply stop desiring. So we have to engage instead of stopping the senses from working, and therefore by that way stopping any karma, good or bad, coming. No, it's not like that. It's engaging the senses in devotional service. It's that dovetailing which needs to be done. So we are already in the age of Kali. This Kali Yuga is extremely difficult to bear with, to carry out activities on, especially those which are spiritual. And so in that Kali Yuga, which we are already in, why make the process even more difficult? So that's the reason the Lord does not recommend this impersonal form. Not only is it difficult, but especially for us now, if we think about it in the age of Kali, it's even more difficult. And so that's why it's not recommended. And also there are examples of stories of people who have been attached and attracted to that feature originally, but then later on they realize the beauty of the Lord. So there is a story of Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva. There's a whole lineage that one can go through: Vashishta, Shakti, Parashara, then Vyasadeva. Wonderful dynasty of great devotees. And Shukadev Goswami, when he was in the womb, he actually didn't want to come out. So he stayed in the womb for 12 years because he didn't want to come out, because he thought, if I come out, then I will get stuck in material nature or something, and that will cause me bondage. I don't want to come out. And so his father asked him, please come out. And so at the age of, I think 12 to 16, he comes out. And immediately he heads out of the house and goes straight to the forest. without caring for anything else. Because he's got that impersonal understanding that, okay, I don't want to get distracted from anything material, and he's already very attracted to that Brahman feature. So he goes over into the forest and thinks, I'll now renounce myself from everything and I'll just meditate on that impersonal feature, that Brahman. So he goes to the forest, and that time Vyasadeva thinks, okay, I need to somehow get him back. I need to somehow engage him in the devotional service. So Vyasadeva goes, he sends his disciples there, and they recite 2 verses about the Lord. One of them is about the beauty of the Lord, his beautiful form, the way he is in Vrindavan as a small boy and engaging with the coward boys and coward girls and the cows and the calves, how he treats them, what all the activities he's doing, and that beautiful form there. And another one is about the mercy of the Lord, Ahol Bakiyam, that verse, which it goes on about, how merciful the Lord is. Putana came to kill him with poison. She tried to kill him with poison and disguise herself. But even that type of person, she was given mercy to, and she was delivered as well. So, Kamba Dayalu Sharam Vrajema, who will we find who is more merciful than this? And hearing these 2 verses, his heart and mind is become completely transformed. And he thinks, I want to know this person. I want to know who's this beautiful, most merciful person. And so in that way, he then becomes attracted to the future of the Lord, and then proceeds to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Puran, which glorifies the Lord. Along with that, we have the story of the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, and they are described as generally childhood boys. They are very, very old, but they appear as children, and they are very, very attracted to that impersonal feature originally as well. But when they go to the Lord Vishnu and they smell the tulsi on the feet of the Lord, then they become extremely attached, and their mind and their heart is changed, and they become so attached to the Lord's personal feature, and then they carry out devotional service. And so there's that verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a very nice verse which describes this process. Atma Ramashcha Munayo Nirgranto Pirukrame Puruvanna Haitukim Bhaktim Mittam Bhuta Guno Hari. That Atma Ramashcha Munayo, these sages, some of these sages, they are self-satisfied. They're on that platform of impersonal understanding. They're self-satisfied, right? And simply put, even though they are self-satisfied, even though they don't have any karma, any piety or anything like that, or bad or good karma that they're trying to, get into, they're not into any of that. They're already in that wonderful stage. They're already they are happy. The source of their happiness is within themselves, and so they're always self-happy and they're self-sustained. All of that. But yet, they enjoy to hear the pastimes of Lord Hari. They enjoy to hear the qualities of Lord Krishna. So such is the qualities of the Lord that even these Atmaramas, these self-satisfied people, they want to hear as well. And so that's how the difference is there between the sort of like the step on the ladder versus the end of the ladder. Sometimes people may mistake the step of the ladder for the end of the ladder, but there is actually further steps that one can go to. And then in the verses 6 and 7, this description is further given. So verses 5, we talked about the impersonal path, and it's a little bit difficult. And verse 6 and 7, we talk about this devotional service to the form of the Lord. Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanto upasate teshamaham samurdharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavamina chirapata bhavamina chiratparta maya veshita chetasam. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I'm the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Swift deliverer, he describes. So, whereas one process is a little more difficult, as described in the 5th verse, this process is a little more easy. The contrast there is very apparent. The Lord says he becomes the deliverer. He will swiftly take one out of this ocean of birth and death. So it becomes a lot easier in that sense. That Lord says in the ending of the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Give up all varieties of religion. Not irreligion, religion. Give up all varieties of religion, all varieties of dharma. And Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Just surrender unto me. Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami. Mashucha. that I will protect you from the reactions of all sins. Do not worry. The Lord is there. And so what makes this process of devotional service even easier is that the Lord is always there to help. The Lord is always there to help his devotees, to support his devotees. And so his presence and mercy takes the devotees far in that process, which makes it easier. And that's why he's described as the swift deliverer, that he quickly comes and delivers them from the ocean of birth and death, or this material existence. And when a man falls in the ocean, or a woman falls in the ocean, and they swim, they may swim how much they want to try and get to shore, but when the currents are against you and the vastness of the ocean, it becomes very, very difficult. But if someone comes, a lifeguard comes and rescues you, it becomes very easy. And so similarly, we are stuck in the ocean of material existence. And so by our own means to try and get out will be very, very difficult. But when the Lord comes, as this the thumbnail of this video, the Lord says that he will come and he will take us out of the ocean. He will himself deliver the person who is stuck in the ocean of material existence. That process becomes much easier. Yes, yeah, himself or his representative. The representative is also there as well, the devotee of the Lord, the bona fide devotee. And so there is a wonderful verse given in the Varaha Puran, which is there in the purport if people want to read, but there's no need to practice Ashtanga Yoga for the soul to go to spiritual paths, realistically, because the responsibility is taken by the Lord himself. He says that he will become deliverer, that he will come on Garuda and he will pick them up out of the ocean of material existence. And so that example, if you want to see literally in a literal ocean, there is Gajendra and the crocodile. He's stuck. The crocodile is biting on his leg, and he's in that pain. And because the crocodile lives in the water, the crocodile is getting stronger day by day, whereas he's getting weaker day by day. And so what does he do? He immediately prays the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai. Those wonderful prayers of Gajendra. And he offers those prayers. And what happens when that devotion is carried out? The Lord, he comes rushing. And it's described poetically by an author that he comes rushing so quickly that even the Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, the things, the weapons and his paraphernalia, they're having to rush behind him. The Garuda is having to come behind him because that's how quick he is. He's the swift deliverer. And he comes and he rescues Gajendra. And so that intense desire, that intense devotional practice is what attracts the Lord. And one of the features of this intense devotion and this intense practice is that by devotion, and this is the most interestingly beautiful part, by devotion, the Lord becomes bound. By devotion, the Lord becomes captured. The Lord who is uncapturable becomes captured by devotion. The Lord becomes the servant, if you like, of the devotee. Ambarish Maharaj, there is a story given, Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni does something to offend Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj doesn't care. He doesn't mind. But the Lord becomes extremely angry and he sends his chakra, Sudarshan Chakra. And so Durvasa Muni, now running away from this Sudarshan Chakra, runs to various planetary systems all throughout this material world, to the demigods. He runs to Indra, Brahma, even Lord Shiva in the material universe, and then even to Lord Vishnu. And then Lord Vishnu says, I can't help you here. I'm the servant of my devotee. Aham bhakta paradhina. I become the servant of my devotee. And so, if you want this Sudarshan to stop hurting you or stop having any effect, go to Ambarish Maharaj. And if he forgives you, then the Sudarshan will leave. And so now after this, Durvasa Muni rushes back to Ambarish Maharaj and asks for his forgiveness. And then he becomes freed of the Sudarshan Chakra. And so we see that even Arjuna as well, in this battlefield of Kurukshetra, that Arjuna, he's the warrior, Krishna is the charioteer, who's only, in a sense, he's become the servant. The charioteer has to do all sorts of jobs in the war. You know, sometimes though it's so loud what's going on that the chariot, the person who's actually the warrior, who's in the chariot, they'll have to kick the charioteer on the right shoulder, which means turn right. They have to kick on the left shoulder, which means turn left, because they're in that sort of war activity. But such is the position of the Lord that he likes to become the servant of the devotee. So the quality of devotional service is not only does the Lord become the swift deliverer, to those devotees, but he also becomes bound by devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is then bound by his mother, by the ropes. And it's described that not by the ropes, you're not bound by the ropes, actually. You're bound by your mother's pure love, and that's what binds him. And so there's that description given as well, that, oh dear Lord, who are known for stealing, you're known for stealing all these butter and things like that. Hari means one who steals. Let me bind you then within the prison of my heart. This is a description given by Bilvamangal Thakur. Wonderful prayer. And so this intense desire of the Lord, not only does it attract the Lord, not only does the Lord provide mercy, but also for the pure devotees, the Lord becomes subservient. Ham bhakta paradina, he says, very nicely. And so from this verses 1 to 7, we see about the process of devotional service compared to the other process. And then from verses 8 to 12, we see other options. Not only is there this wonderful process of devotional service, but there are other options as well. This process may be easy, but even if we find it difficult sometimes to act in this process, then there are other options which the Lord provides us with. Steps down. If you can't do this, then do that to start with before you come to this, etc. And so this is what this is about. In the 8th verse, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. That simply by focusing on the Lord, this is very similar to the last verse of the 11th chapter, the verse in the 9th chapter, last verse, the one that comes in the 7th chapter as well. Always engaging. This is simply it. This is the devotional service. And so there's that direct personal relationship with the Lord. And so there's that transcendental connection. The one best way to keep in touch as well, keep that transcendental connection, is by chanting the names of the Lord, because the names of the Lord are non-different from the Lord. And so there's always, whatever activity carried out, the consciousness is always there of the Lord. All the intelligence, and just fix your mind in me, engage all your intelligence in me, thus you'll live in me always, without a doubt. But even if that is not possible, so that may be a little difficult. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna is the advice given. But even if that's difficult, there's a little step down. If you struggle to do that, then the Lord provides this one. My dear Arjun, O winner of wealth, if you can't fix your mind upon me without deviation, then at least follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Then follow the regulative principles. So sometimes, if we can't do that, if we can't simply fix our mind without undeviating, then we should follow those regulative principles. Slightly mechanical at first, maybe this devotional service, but then it awakens that dormant love which is already within our heart. So it's not difficult. You don't have to look elsewhere because it's already there. And so that can be done through the chanting, or in particular the singing of the names, the hearing of the pastimes, the discussions with the devotees, the eating of the prasadam, which I'm sure people will appreciate a lot more. That these sort of regulative principles that we follow, the deity worship as well, and thank you, yes, reading books and hearing as well. And so these processes, which may seem slightly more mechanical at first, they awaken that dormant love in the heart. And so that's why we should take up to them if we cannot always focus on the Lord. Then after that, even if you can't carry out those regulative principles, then the Lord provides the next one in verse number 10. If you can't practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. By working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So we might find it difficult even sometimes to practice these regulations. Sometimes we might even find that difficult. So the Lord says, okay, if you're working, then just work for me. If you're a doctor, then assist the devotees by taking care of their health needs. If you're an engineer and an architect, then please assist the devotees with designing their temples. If one is engaged in, an optician, then please help the devotees in their eyesight. If one is engaged in finances, help the devotees out with their finances. At least work for the Lord, because then it will awaken that sort of love. And so from there, then we can go on to regulations, and from there we can go on to the pure devotional service. And so voluntary service will help one rise to a higher state of love of God. and then their one can become perfect. And so the devotional service, the difference here is that this is just service, though. This is service. There's not that love. Service without love isn't as blissful. And so that service then is there with love in those other two, which separates this one a little bit. So at least if you're working, then work for the Lord. So so we've talked about devotional service, regulations, which is a little more mechanical, and then this one where there's just working for the Lord. And if you can't work for the Lord, Lord will give another one in 11th chapter. Initially, if you can't do that, then try start here instead. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to give up all results of your work. Then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. So this is the Nishkama Karma Yoga, just a step below, one step below Bhakti Yoga. If you can't even carry out the devotional service and you can't even work with the devotees all the time, or you can't work in the consciousness of the Lord, when you're working, at least give up the fruits of the work. Give up the fruits of the work. If you can't, normally there's a little subtle difference there. One is working while thinking of Krishna, and the other one is working without thinking of Krishna but giving up the fruits. So at least give up the fruits of work. We do so many endeavors. We think, I have revised so much for this exam. I think this sometimes. I've revised so much for this exam, I might think that, okay, I need to get the best in the class now. I've put all that work in, I need to, right? Or someone may think, I've done this much in the work, I deserve a pay rise. I've done this much activity, why do they not appreciate me enough? I've done this and that. We always think that, okay, I have done, I need the results. Instead, we know karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That's not the process. One should at least renounce himself from the results. That's the Nishkarmya platform, Nishkama Karma Yoga, without attachment to the results, but you still work. And so in that way, the work doesn't affect you. Just like when the devotees work as well, that's beyond Nishkama Bhakti Yoga and Nishkama Karma Yoga, the results are not affecting. And so at least this is one step below. And then finally, this summary is given in the 12th verse. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasa jnanam dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phala tyagas tyagas shantiranantaram. Sometimes people might find this a little more difficult because it's a little more technical, but we can understand simply by going through the same process again. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. And so this is even more options are given, right? The Lord starts off with knowledge. Cultivate the knowledge. And after cultivating knowledge, maybe you'll be able to get to the process of meditation. And then by meditation, you'll be able to renounce the fruits. Because the problem with meditation is you can't work while meditating. And so it's unsustainable. You have to be able to carry out your worldly affairs without being entangled. So that's why better than meditation is renouncing the fruits of the activities. And so in the long run, the meditation is not sustainable in that sense. And then renouncing the fruits of activities, one can attain peace of mind. So to attain partial peace at least, we need to have that knowledge. That knowledge should be practically given to us so that we can meditate then. And then after meditating, we can renounce the fruits of our activities. So that's the sort of step. And of course, after that, you can attain a certain peace. But then after renouncing the fruits as well, you can work for the Lord and it will work with consciousness of the devotees. And then beyond that, of course, there is that regulation in devotional service. And then beyond that, there is that pure devotional service where one is constantly focused on the Lord. So this sort of process is given. Knowledge, meditation, renounced fruits, working with Krishna, working for Krishna with consciousness of Krishna, regulated devotion, and then constantly thinking of the Lord. That process is there. And so there's two separate processes actually given here. The first one is more of a direct approach, and the second one's more of an indirect approach. The direct approach is generally that of, okay, now you want to engage, you're convinced about the Lord, you're convinced about Lord Krishna being the topmost. Then simply carry out all the activities in consciousness of the Lord. And then carry out Bhakti Yoga. So carry out Bhakti, and that will lead to further Bhakti. That's the direct process. But even if we don't have that firm conviction, sometimes we have so many things that we disagree with, there's also an indirect path as well. We can start off with that knowledge, Then we should meditate. Past that meditation, that should lead us to renouncing the fruit, because if we keep on wanting the fruits of our activities, we don't get any peace. We can get some sort of peace there, and then we work for the Lord, and then we carry out devotional service in the end, which leads to the true peace. That's given in the end of the 5th chapter. Wonderful point there. And so these are the different options. The Lord has given an easy process, but even if we can't take up that easy process, the Lord gives further options as well. But they should all culminate in Bhakti Yoga. And so that is the middle section about options. And now from verses 13 to 20, we see the qualities of the devotee and how dear the devotee is to the Lord. So verses 13 to 20, also there are 35 qualities mentioned. And it's important that we recognize that these qualities, they come through devotional service. So what sort of qualities does a person who's engaged in devotion but develop? What sort of saintly qualities are developed by carrying out this devotional service? Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitraha karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukka sukakshami santushta satatam yogi yatatma dridhanishchaya mayarpita mano buddhir yomad bhakta same priya. One who is not envious, or is a kind friend to all living entities. One who does not think himself as the proprietor, is free from false ego. One who is equal in happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. One thing we will notice immediately is all these verses end with something about priya. Priyosime, very dear to me. Yomad bhakta same priya. Priya means very dear. And so this devotee is very dear to the Lord. What are the qualities we've seen? Kind to all living entities. Living entities includes plants and animals. Those who don't treat the animals properly and those who don't treat the plants properly cannot say they are also being kind to all living entities. So simply by that change in the heart, all these other problems go. This is why devotional service is described as a panacea. Not only does it receive, all problems are gone. Whether that be the problem of the environment right now that we are seeing, for our own greed, we are attacking the wildlife, the plants and the animals, that also disappears with devotional service. We can do this outside, we can do this whole, campaigning, elections, politics and whatever, but if there's no change in the heart, then in another 50, 60 years when there is a new generations of people, that greed is still there, that consciousness is not developed, and the environment becomes polluted again. When Narad Muni is going in a child form, in Narad Muni's previous birth, he's walking, he sees all these minds and all these humans, and it's described that they are exploiting the resources of material nature. Wherever there is that the people are not God conscious, then that will always, the exploiting of material nature always happens. And so whenever the people are God conscious, then that does not happen. And so immediately we realize that, yes, there are short-term fixes. You want to be healthy, you can do things, but then that needs to be sustainable. How can you sustainably change everything? That's through devotional service. There are sins. You can have atonement, prayashchita. But if you atone for a sin and then you carry on sinning later and then you make another atonement, then you're not stopping sinning. There has to be a change of the heart, and that's where devotion comes in. And so that's one of the things. He's kind to all living entities. He's equal in both happiness and distress. He's always equal in happiness and distress. And this is one of the things that's mentioned time and time and time again, that equipoise nature of the devotee, who is stable, who is balanced, who is tolerant, is described that in the summer and the winter seasons, just like there are always those summer and winter, they're alternating, just in the same way there will always be alternating happiness and distress, like a sine curve, if you like. There will be happiness and then distress, and then we'll have further happiness, and there'll be further distress. This world is full of dualities like that. The fact that happiness is here in the material world, material happiness, means there will be material distress. And material distress means there will be material happiness. And so when we're happy, sometimes we become overjoyed. We overreact. We celebrate like anything. But also that means that when we become upset, that also hits us harder. We become extremely depressed. We become extremely hurt. We become extremely fragile and hurt. And we are unable to think straight, unstable. And so the devotee is equipoised in both happiness and distress. They become less and less reactive, and to such an extent that the pure devotee then does not care for the material happiness or distress whatsoever. Other qualities that are there, he's tolerant. He's always satisfied, self-satisfied, as we mentioned earlier. Self-controlled and engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence is fixed upon the Lord. What does the Lord say? Such a devotee is so dear to him. In the 15th verse, we see further qualities of the devotee. Yasmano dvijate loko lokano dvijate chaya harshamarshava yodvegair muktoya sachame priya. We're gonna again see that same thing again. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness, distress, fear, and anxiety, is very dear to me. There are two aspects mentioned in this one. No one else is put into difficulty by the devotee. The devotee does not say things or act in a way which disturbs others. It's described that one of the things the devotee does is he's able to speak the truth in a sweet manner. And so therefore he encourages everyone to take up the devotion of the Lord. No way, he doesn't disturb anyone else. But the second thing is that he does not put anyone else in difficulty, but when other people put him in difficulty, try to put him in difficulty, he's also not disturbed. Okay, so this is all showing that very stable relation, that very stable nature of the devotee. And then later on again, he's not agitated in happiness and distress, he's equal there, or in fear and anxiety. He's equipoised. And so sometimes when people get a little bit of wealth, they become very happy. A little bit of money, a little bit of fame, they go intoxicated and crazy. So in the same way that like those people do that, then there's also people as soon as, let's say, because life will put us down. The material world is like that. Life puts us down, then they become extremely upset and they will go to extreme measures on the other end. So that stable nature comes from being in connection with the Lord. Neither going too far this way or that way. Yes, yeah. And so my dad's just said very nicely, yeah, so Srila Prabhupada, who spread this Krishna conscious movement to the West, he had so many obstacles. He had so many difficulties. He had 2 heart attacks on the ship that he came on. He came into a country where no one spoke his language, no one knew his culture, no one knew his traditions. He came with a simple trunk of Bhagavatam books. But even though all there were these difficulties on this path, he strived through them, determined in his devotion. And that's how he carried out, and that's how he was stable in that. Because if when one was in connection with the Lord, then all these other things, they don't have much of an effect. So that connection needs to be there with the Lord. So that's why devotional service is very beautiful. Again, what does the Lord end that verse with? Mukto yas sachame priya. He's very dear to me, that person. Again, in verse 16, Anapeksha shuchir daksha udasino gata vyada sarvaramba parityagi yomad bhakta same priya. The devotee, my devotee, who is not dependent on any ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pain, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. Other activities we've seen pure. Pure means cleanliness as well. A lot of people, they say cleanliness is like godliness, but how much do we practice that in our life? How do we keep ourselves organized and clean in that way? Not just clean externally, but clean internally as well. Subtle body as well as the gross body. We know we can wash clean the subtle body, the gross body, our physical body we can clean by going in the shower and putting some soap. But how do we clean the subtle body? As given in the wonderful Gita Mahatmya, by listening to Bhagavad Gita every day. That's how we can cleanse ourselves. Jalasnanam dine dine. Sakrit Gitamrita snanam or Gitambasi snanam samsara malanashanam. It gets rid of those internal dirt, the dirt which is there in the heart can be cleansed by hearing and reading the Gita. And so that's how he's pure. And because he's not striving for any result, he's therefore carefree because there's no result. He's not striving for anything. And therefore there's no pain either. So that's why it describes a Paneshwar. It gets rid of all the pains. Yo na harshati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubha shubha parityagi bhakti manya same priya. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very, very dear to me. So again, because he's transcendental to this material nature, he transcends these modes and the material miseries, these material things, whether that be happiness or distress. There's no rejoice, no grief, there's no lamentation or desire, there's neither auspicious nor, they're completely transcendental to all these things. So therefore they are very dear to the Lord, because because they're very dear to the Lord. Sorry, I said that the wrong way. Because they're very dear to the Lord, they are able to transcend all these things because of that connection, that devotional service that they're engaged in. And finally, verses 18 and 19. Samashatraucha mitrecha tata manapamanayo sitoshna sukha dukkeshu samasanga vivarjita tulya nindastu tirmauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa hastirmatir bhaktiman me priyonara. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, one who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, one who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Again, that equipoised nature, equal to friend and enemy. Some of you may remember that verse in the 6th chapter, is equally sees equally sees the rocks, the pebbles, and the gold. And then Sukhrin Mitrari Dasina describes all those people, the friend, the enemy, the person that does this. So all these people that are seen with equal vision. That happens here as well when one is engaged in devotional service. But there is a difference in this sense and that sense, because there is the sweetness, the sweet relation, the sweet reciprocation of the Lord as well in this process. And also this verse says always silent. Sometimes that thinks that people mean that therefore we should not talk to anyone. We should actually detach ourselves. No, because that has already been renounced. That detachment process is not the right process. What actually is the right way of staying silent? Silent means not speaking nonsense, not speaking. Silence means not speaking nonsense. One should speak the truth, but one should speak it sweetly as well. And so Shukadev Goswami, he spoke 7 days and 7 nights continuously Srimad Bhagavatam. The devotees, they're always speaking, but they're speaking the glories of the Lord. So silence doesn't mean literally being like just not talking like that. It's not like that, but rather it's engaging the tongue in the devotional service. So silent about material things. Doesn't care for any residence, does not mean homeless or wandering. One can carry out the devotional service while in the house. It's just that they are not extremely attached to the house. So it's the same sort of things there. And such a person is very dear to me. Bhaktiman me priyonaraha. And finally, then we come to this conclusion of this chapter in the 20th verse. Yetu dharmamritamidham yatoktam paryupasate shraddha dhana matparama bhaktaste tiva me priya. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Ativa, very, very dear to me. The Lord says that this path of devotional service is imperishable. This bhakti, how it changes people, we can see. There's a description of these saintly qualities they develop when one practices devotion. The description of Mrigari, the hunter, who used to not just kill animals, but used to half kill them and let them die slowly. Like maybe just, shoot them with a couple of arrows, but let them then just bleed to death. Or cut off a leg and watch it just die slowly in pain. So that type of person, that type of disgusting person, he, by the association of the devotees like Narad Muni, by association of Narad Muni, he completely changes his ways, completely changes character. And then later on, when he goes to see Narad Muni again, he's running. And then he's running in a weird way. And Narad Muni says, why are you running in such a strange manner, dancing almost? Why are you running like that? Is everything okay? And he says, no, there's these ants on the floor and I'm trying to get away and I don't want to step on these ants. I don't want to affect these ants. I don't want to hurt them. And so that type of person, his nature was transformed completely by devotional service. Then we can see in the present day as well, many, many people, drugs, drinking, gangs, all of these sorts of things, or extremely attached to money, extremely attached to lusty desires. These types of people, by practicing devotional service, they are losing those material qualities and developing those devotional qualities, those transcendental qualities, those saintly qualities. They're also being able to develop in their own lives as well. And so the devotee is able to then manifest these qualities because of the connection with the Lord. That connection is so important because the Lord's connection, how can you connect to the Lord? You can connect to the Lord through the devotee in the end, right? And the devotee will tell you how one can carry out the devotional service. And so that connection is what provides all these qualities. And then these qualities obviously make one better and better person, make them very dear to the Lord. And it's that Lord Krishna is then satisfied by devotion. This process of bhakti is very sweet. That's one of the things that's emphasized. That is so sweet that Rupa Goswami says that if you want to maintain your attachments to your family, to your country, to your home, to your nationality, to your race, to your gender, if you want to maintain all these attachments, don't go to Govinda. Don't. Because if you go, then you will find him so sweet that you won't want to be attached to anything else. And so in the same way, the gopis, they're so like loving the Lord, they're so attached that they say, I curse Lord Brahma because he gave us eyelids. And the eyelids mean we have to blink, so we aren't able to see the Lord permanently. And so that's the sort of connection that they get to at their sort of level of devotional service. So the devotional service is a very sweet process. And especially in terms of the yoga processes, if one is looking from that perspective, then it's the topmost yoga process. And so that's why it's recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, because it's above all the loving devotional service as well. Devotional service is not devotional service completely if there is no love. The love is also there. It's there in their interactions. And so there are various types of devotional services, but especially pertinent to the age of Kali, which we are in right now, is a chanting. There is a verse given, Kriteya dhyayato Vishnu tretayam yajato makai dvapare paricharyayam kalau tat harikirtanat. Kriteya dhyayato Vishnu. In the Krita Yuga, the Satya Yuga, then the process given is meditation. By meditating on Lord Vishnu, one can achieve the supreme goal. Tretayam yajato makai. In Treta Yuga, by carrying out elaborate fire sacrifices, one can achieve the Lord. Dvapare paricharyayam. By Dvapara, in Dvapara Yuga, by carrying out the deity worship, one can achieve the Lord. Kalau tat hari kirtanat. In Kali Yuga, chanting the names of Hari. Hari means one who steals. And what will he steal? Not only will he steal our desires, material desires, all our miseries, but he will also steal our hearts. And there's not only that Hari will do. Yes, all these other things you can do in Kali, but you can't do the meditation as well, the fire sacrifices. We're not on that level. We don't have the right sort of equipment and paraphernalia to carry out these other processes perfectly. But we can perfectly carry out devotional service. And there's also a description of Hare Krishna. Hare, as described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the meanings of Hare is that one who steals. But it refers to Radharani. What does Radharani steal, one may ask? Radharani is so powerful, so great, her magnanimity is such that she steals the heart of Lord Krishna. And so, that when we chant the Lord's holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we are trying to encourage and awaken that dormant love which is within our hearts. And so for the process of this age, we may not be able to carry out all these other processes, but we will. And anyone and everyone can chant wherever they can, wherever they want, the name of the Lord. And so that's why devotional service not only is that emphasized, but especially for Kali Yuga, it's the chanting of the holy name. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. It's the name of the Lord, the name of the Lord, the name of the Lord only, right? That can save one. Nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva. There's no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. In Sanskrit, repetition is often seen as a bad thing because it means that you can't think of other words. It means that your vocabulary is slightly low and you don't have a big repertoire. But actually, the emphasis in this verse is so important because it emphasizes there is no other way and it's only the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And so therefore, I encourage everyone to please, if you're not chanting, at least chant around. Sing as well. Singing, who doesn't like singing? Everyone enjoys kirtan, so please sing as well. Carry out devotional service in Krishna conscious, with a Krishna conscious mindset, and then we'll be able to enjoy this wonderfully sweet process of the Lord. And then what else is there? It's described that it's done joyfully. It's joyfully performed in the 9th chapter. This devotional service is joyfully performed. So there we'll be able to experience the true joy, true peace. And so, with that, we'll conclude today. Today we focused on the impersonal versus the personal aspects, the meditating and renouncing work, or working in devotional service, and we came to the conclusion that devotional service is better. Then the various other options, sometimes we might not even be able to start there. The Lord is so merciful, he gives various other options as well. And so if we start at least at one place, we get started, then we'll be able to initiate and then go through various other stages before we can come to devotional service. And then finally, that being in connection with the Lord and the devotees of the Lord, being in connection through devotional service will purify us, will develop these transcendental qualities within us. And therefore we can see that development, that progress. When these transcendental qualities are slowly developing, we can notice the change in our life. And so with that, we should therefore engage in the devotional service of the Lord and chant the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so that's the conclusion of today's session, the 12th chapter of the Gita, entitled Devotional Service. If there are any other questions, then please do put them in chat. But it looks like we are finished for this time. The next session will occur in 2 weeks, should be the 18th Sunday, where we will discuss the 13th chapter, Nature, Joy, and Consciousness. It doesn't appear there are any questions. We'll just wait a minute because of the lag of time. Okay, it's been around about 30 seconds. So I think it looks like Shikamadaji Hare Krishna. Okay, so it looks like there's nothing else. Let's please engage in this joyful process, the very sweet, very beautiful, very enjoyable process of devotional service, which is very easy compared to the other processes. And especially if we do it along with devotees, they will clarify our doubts. They will inspire and encourage us further. So we'll see each other on the 18th, discussing the next chapter, and prasadam will be served in your own home. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.